It's really nice to be back at the 3 Joules after crazy summer, yeah? Or as Americans would say, crazy summer. We're doing some water offerings, which is an important thing to do. Anybody not been to the 3 Joules before? Not been to the 3 Joules before? Welcome, welcome. So if all the blah blah and the blah blah freaks you out a little, that's good. Yeah, because it'll probably leave a big impression. But know that it's your own impression. Yeah. So we're going to do a little bit of blah blah and yeah, like that. Some traditional Tibetan style activities and ritual, I guess, but it's to invoke something. And so if you feel something, if you're used to it, and if you're familiar with it, it should invoke something that you've been practicing. And if you're not, it will invoke something that you haven't been practicing, and that's okay too. But the point of any kind of movement of mind, or movement of body, or movement of speech is really to invoke a shift in perception. And so the idea here is for the next 2 hours, for the next 3 classes, we're going to hopefully connect with something that has a deep potential to ultimately shift the way we look at life. Truly. Not as a band-aid, but something that can definitely shift the entire way we perceive and experience ourselves in reality. That's the point of all this. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's not an interesting curiosity. The point of all these things is something should shift in us. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. I mean, you know, we can go party. I heard this crazy song by a drag queen. This Tibetan teacher. It was by Peggy Lee, I think. Maybe I'll play it in the break. But she said, you know, she's like, I think it goes something like, when I was 10 years old, our house caught on fire. And my father picked me up gently in his arms and he placed me outside, and I stood there in my pajamas looking at our house burning down. She's singing, right? And she goes, and after the fire was all over and there was just ashes on the ground, I thought to myself, is that all there is to a fire? And then she continues to do this song. Is that all there is to a relationship? Is that all there is to living? Is that all there is to partners? Is that all there is to family? And then she goes, if that's all there is, then we should party. We should get drunk and have, you know, have a ball and dance and lose it up. And the beautiful thing is that this says that's not all there is. There's more than that. Because if that's all there is, we should be outside partying, right? And being animals or something. So hopefully, in the next 3 classes, I want to make this as real and as practical as possible so it infects your psychological DNA. We get an insight into some way of looking and experiencing this world so there is no suffering. Hopefully we touch that. So to do that, that's why we do all this blah blahs, is to invoke a different state of being. So for those of you who know, the first thing we do is we make some kind of offering. We say to that potential thing that you will experience, hopefully in the next 2 hours, if there is some wisdom that will come to you from sounds that come from this teaching, you're offering to wherever that comes from for you. It might come from, you know, a being, it might come from somewhere. But for that to occur in you, you're making an offering saying, please, I offer you whatever the most beautiful thing it is that I can imagine. And in this case, it's a perfect universe. You're saying, for a perfect universe, please teach me. For the next 2 hours, may something get so deep inside me that I want to change my entire existence. So you're asking for that. That's what this is. This is called the mandala offering, and we need an umse to do that. Ukir Jishin Top Town Viravin Shir in Dedim Padi 성계 신두 밑에 그와기 드로큰 남다 신라 주파쇼 이랑 그르락 나몬다 감일야타야미 주랑 속이 적남나 전주 발드 약미 겹수치 나기 진예기 배선함기 드로라 벤칠 상계 주파쇼 주랑 속이 적남라 전주 발드 약미 겹수치 나기 진예기 배선함기 드로라 벤칠 상계 주파쇼 주랑 속이 적남라 전주 발드 약미 겹수치 나기 진예기 배선함기 드로라 벤칠 상계 주파쇼. And so I encourage you to think about your motivation for being here. Think about your expectations. What was it that attracted you to the class? It says 6 classes. We're actually doing 6 classes in 3 weeks because a bunch of us are going to Nepal for a little while. So we squeezed a 6-week course into 3 weeks. But why are you here? You know, like if you really get that clear in your mind and understand your motivation, hopefully you can feed that thing and complete the picture. Our motivation towards something is because we want to feel like we're completing something, we're fulfilling something. So hopefully that little cookie man of you or person will get filled out by the end of the 6 weeks. 6 weeks, 6 classes condensed into 3. So we're doing 2 classes a night. The motivation is really important because every single movement of mind that you do will have a repercussion. Everything you plan, everything you do, say, or think will have a result. Every course has an equal and opposite reaction. And in the system that we're learning, that's called karma, and that means everything grows exponentially, including the motivation why you're here. So if you sit here and go, you know, I just want to, I want to meet really interesting Tibetan Buddhists. I don't know. I don't know. If you, whatever your motivation is, maybe you want to meet cute girls on birthdays. Hello. That will grow. So the bigger your motivation, like, and I propose this to you. If you think about the promise of this class, and we'll get into it when we get to the content of the Bhava chapter, the wheel of life. I propose, and what we're about to teach says, that this is a code, like a map, to a terrain, right? It is a code to ultimately breaking suffering, completely. And reaching a state of nirvana, perfection, Buddhahood, beyond suffering. That's the promise of this painting, that somewhere locked in that, in those lines and colors, in the shapes, if you had the right vision for it, if you had the right understanding, you could invoke in yourself the causes for ultimately fixing the continuous need to change state, want more, want less of that horrible thing, want more of this beautiful thing. That constant thing that plagues us every day, that want for, I'm not quite happy just yet. If I do this, I'll get a little bit happier. If I do that, if I avoid this, if I avoid that. That constant thing that plagues all existence, all humans, all animals, most things we do can terminate and turn into ultimate bliss. Is that possible? Is that available to us right here? That's what this says. If that's true, then what's your motivation really? Can you scale up your motivation to say, what if I found that? Really, you, like not me intellectually, you, that thing there. If you found that thing that turned it on, that you could be right here in this room in total bliss, complete and utter bliss. Reach a state of nirvana. Buddha, wake up. You're awake. What would that be like? And would you want to keep it to yourself? Or would you think of your mum and your sister and your lover and your cousin and your father and your neighbor and say, if I figured that out, can I give it to them? So think about your motivation, whatever it is. If you want to meet a girl's on birthday, that's good. You can do that. Because that's also a nice thing, which is pretty fun. Right? And it's a birthday. No, it wasn't. But what if there's more? You know? What if there's more? And if you got that thing, and then wouldn't you want to ramp it up? So I proposed that. To me, that's filling a cookie monster. What is it? Ginger cookie? Is that a gingerbread? Ginger man? Bread man? Yeah. I'm ethnic, so I don't know these things. I was born when I was really young. I got it in. Yeah. So then think about what you will take away and what opportunity there is if that's true. Your motivation is all important because we're so selfish. We just want the stuff we want, right? And that's okay. We can use that to elevate, to rise up, and become even greater than what we thought. So all this ritual and so on is there to invoke, habituate the possibility of those things. So let me ask you first, before I tell you a story, let me ask you first, why are you here? Honestly. Like, I know for me, it's been a little while since I've been in here and I missed it. It's really nice to be here for me. But why are you here? And don't be shy because I'll force the interaction.
I love people a lot.
You love people a lot?
Yeah.
It's your birthday. Good. Okay, no, but what are you seeking from this course, this specific wheel of life? Why are you for the wheel of life? Anyone? If you don't say, I'm going to call out your names. So.
Well, it was just, we used to have the group of past and future lives, and that is kind of the continuation.
Excellent, yeah. So that's nice. So for those of you who don't know, we've been doing a formal 5-year course that is a condensed version of the 20-year monastic curriculum for a geshe in the Tibetan system. So we've been doing that for over a 5-year period that will be finished. We're into a year and a half, nearly 2 years. We finished course 4 out of 18, which is the proof of future lives was course 4, which is finished. And this is a beautiful complement to that because it will explain the idea of past and future lives in a way that if you've done that course, you can see connections. So that's good. So yeah, this will complement. Anyone else?
I'm here because I've never studied the wheel of life, and if I'm trying to get out of a loop, I feel like I should know what the loop looks like.
Good. We want to get out of suffering. We want to figure out how to get out of suffering. That's really good. That's a good. Okay, good. Anyone else? Emily, why are you here? You knew I was going to pick on you.
Because I think there's something to all of this, and I've been putting it into practice, and I've seen some things change, and I want more to change. And so, maybe some tips along the way.
Great. It's funny because for me, I feel utterly privileged to teach it. Yeah, and I figure like, who the hell am I? I'm just some kid from South America who moved to Australia, got the opportunity to see 2 different cultures, and I don't feel like there's anything in me that has these wisdoms. But I don't know what the hell happened, but I got to taste these things for 17 years, and it's in me now. And I'm beginning now to see the world through these things and not any other way. So I feel I've tasted what you just described. Some things have worked, and there's something in here. Each time I get to share with you, like I feel cheated, I feel like I'm tricked. You know, like why do I get to sit here, you know, and not there? I do feel like that there are way more qualified people that can teach you this, and I'll try and be as honest about what I don't know as I can be. But after you teach this 2, 3, 4 times, you see things in it that you never saw before. If you hear it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you hear things that you never heard before, and all of a sudden what you've been practicing for 3 years or 2 years or a week, or a way of looking at the world, opens up. And it was always there. And something opens up in this same world that we've been living and habituating and thinking things are this way. All of a sudden something, just a word or an idea or a dream after you go home, or something enters your consciousness and you can't look at the world the same way. That's in there, available to the ones with new hearing, with new sight. But it needs your participation, it needs your 50%, your engagement. That's why understanding your own motivation for coming here is so important. Because that's the energy that fuels, you know, what's in it for me. So you're going to get something, and how can I fix my specific problem of I'm too fat, too old, too bald, too, you know, all the things that plague us. How do I fix that thing? With that selfishness, you can then propel onto that bigger realization. So let me tell you a story. A long, long time ago, in a land far, far away. Think of India about 600 BC. There are 16 kingdoms. And in these 16 kingdoms, 2 of them, one was ruled by King Udrayana, and the other one was ruled by King Bimbisara. I better get my notes so I don't tell you lies. Yeah. And the tradition at the time, I'm telling you where this wheel came from, where this painting came from. The tradition at the time was that you would offer each other gifts if you were the king of this and the king of that, but it was also a little tongue-in-cheek to outdo each other, you know. So this little war of gifts, which is much nicer than the current wars we have on this planet. Yeah? This war of gifts began between the Vatsa and the Magadha, King Udrayana and King Bimbisara. And so, you know, it began by, I send you a little present with the diamond, and then, you know, 5 diamonds come, and then you send a box with about innumerable jewels and gold, and then, you know, books of knowledge and golden jewels come back, and then you better send 3 chests of gold. You know, over time it escalated until King Udrayana sent King Bimbisara this most magnificent cloak. And this cloak was like a Harry Potter invisibility cloak. No, it was this cloak protected you from absolutely everything. So no spear could hit you, nothing could kill you if you were wearing this cloak. And he thought, King Bimbisara thought, this is quite precious. This is like, there's no fabric, no cloak like this in the entire kingdom that I know of. This is quite dangerous for me to have this, because it's so ultimate and so amazing. I can't give him back anything better. So, you know, he's lost the war of gifts. And he's like, I'm a loser, and then he's got one up on me. You know, that kind of, what will I ever give him in return if he's totally given me something that protects me from death, you know, in relative terms. So he consults a yogi at the time, and the yogi says, well, I don't really know if there's any substance better than that, or any gift you could possibly give back to King Udrayana that's more ultimate, more meaningful, more precious than that valuable thing he just sent you. So he goes, instead of asking me, because I'm just a yogi, why don't you ask the Buddha? He's, you know, the awakened one who's roaming these lands at the moment. I know he's staying in such and such a place. You can go and ask him. And so King Bimbisara decides that this is very important, because apparently the Buddha at the time had omniscience, could see. So this was the story at the time. He could see into everything. So I should ask him. So King Bimbisara goes to the grounds where the Buddha is with his entourage, formally dressed, like really to impress, and the rest. And he says, you know, I've had this thing happen with King Udrayana. What could I possibly give him that's more precious than this most magnificent thing that he's given me? And the Buddha said, well, you could give him immortality. You could give him the most magnificent thing. How about a picture of me? So, so he's like, picture of you. I'm sure that's not exactly how it's written in the sutras, okay? But it's you get the idea, okay? You can transcend suffering. I mean, is there anything more? So, picture of me would do, right? And King Bimbisara says, okay, let's do that. So you get his painters and an entourage of painters to begin painting the Buddha, and then, you know, in a few weeks he'll come back, pick up the painting and give it to King Udrayana, and he's outdone him and the war is won, you know. 2 weeks or so go past and there's no word from the painters. And he sends his army to go, his attendants to go and check, and they come back and say, nothing's happening. Everybody is frozen, just staring at the Buddha because he is so radiant. He is so beautiful to look at. They can't even paint. So it's convoluted. He goes over, King Bimbisara goes over to see if he can fix it, and he has words with the Buddha. And he says, you know, like, this can't happen, I need to give him the gift. And the Buddha says, well, I've got an idea. How about we put this sheet in front of me, and because the sun is behind, my shadow will be on that sheet, on the canvas, and then your people can actually draw an outline of me, and then they can fill in the blanks from memory, you know, and I can help them later if they need to. So they decide that's what they're going to do, and sure enough, they draw the silhouette of him, and then the Buddha says, well, you know, actually, if it's really going to help King Udrayana and really serve him in a way that's higher than that protective thing, why don't we also do this and this and this and that? And so the picture was drawn with the Buddha on the top right-hand side, which was the beginning of that, and then the Buddha designed the rest according to the sutra, and explained to the artisans what to put in each one of the quadrants, in each of the sections. And I'll explain, today's class will give you a summary of the entire thing. The next few classes will give you in depth. But the story goes, and this is beautiful, and you get this in this rare book, it's hard to find, you can find it online. The story goes that the painting was completed, this painting was completed. King Bimbisara decides this is the most precious thing and needs to be guarded very, very well. So he puts his army on, and his special forces, the SAS equivalent, and he decides to send it to King Udrayana. And he sends his army, an entourage, with these chests, and locked inside the chest was another chest, another chest, another chest, until this massive painting of the Wheel of Life was inside that, right? Wrapped in silks and this and the other, you know, guarded by everybody, the army there. And so King Udrayana is hanging out in his castle, I guess, and he looks out the window and he sees the army of King Bimbisara coming, thinking, oops, did we offend him with my previous gift? So he sends his army out to greet, and his people follow. And imagine 600 BC, King Bimbisara's army holding this precious gift, all protecting this chest. That inside the chest is locked secret of the most precious thing in the world. And King Udrayana's army come out with him to greet each other in the middle of the fields, and all the people that live in the fields come to see what's going on. And so they make the offering to King Udrayana, and they open and open and open until they scroll out this painting. And as soon as this painting is exposed to the people of the land, it is said that everybody dropped to the ground because they saw the radiance in it, the most magnificent thing. They saw this image of the Buddha, what it was like to transcend suffering and death, and they were moved so much to the ground. But King Udrayana didn't understand what was going on. He hadn't heard of the Buddha, he hadn't heard that there was this being on the planet that had transcended suffering, had woken up Buddha. And so he's like wondering what the hell is going on, but he saw this magnetic beauty in the painting. The code inside that thing was calling out to him. Something was shifting. So he took it home, and it is said that he had it open in his room, and he did not sleep that night. That he took it back and he stared at it all night until the early hours of the morning. He went into a deep state of meditation based on what he could see on the code of this painting that you're about to learn. And he got to see the ultimate nature of reality that morning. And the next 24 hours that followed, he saw the 4 Arial truths. And he became what's called an Arya, a being who has cut through the fabric of reality to see the ultimate nature, where you can see directly why suffering happens, how it's caused, why it's produced, and how you can stop it, how long it would take for you to stop it, and you wake up. That's what the beginning of Buddha is to see ultimate reality, which is called seeing emptiness directly in this case. It's to see the code behind the matrix. It's like, and it's not some imaginary thing. It's like you are sitting here in this room, flesh and bone, and you're seeing some ethnic looking guy going blah blah blah. But there is something else behind this. This room is pregnant with a reality that you can't see. It's hidden to you. But there's a hint of it coming. This is what King Udrayana was doing that night. And then something gets you to a state of trance almost, where you go into deep meditation and you see that code. You see the thing that is producing this for you. That occurred to him. So he was the first victim, if you like, of the code inside this painting. And he woke up. He became an Arya, which means someone who has seen the ultimate nature of reality. It's like you see the code in the matrix, then you come back inside the matrix and you know it's all made up. You know why you suffer, you know how to stop it. He became the first victim, and then it is said that he left his kingdom. He began to follow the Buddha as a follower, as a lay person, and he entered Nirvana. So that's the story of why this painting is important. It dates back to the time of the Buddha. It had its first victim around the year 600 BC. So if you imagine, it's actually the most complex instrument. It's the most amazing code that could really, truly, if this is true, transcend the way we experience our lives right now. And it's available. There's something in that that's available. All the teachings, all the images, all the words, and even all the ideas that we have about the code, the painting, the images, are just a sign pointing to something real. Like a map is not the terrain. And when you look at Google Maps, you're not actually, there's no big massive blue dot floating above us at the moment if you're looking at, you know, if you're doing Google Maps and you see the GPS, there's no massive dot. That's just a concept. This is just a concept. But it's pointing to a reality that can shift you, shift your experience. So that's the promise here. And the coding here is supposed to, if you know how to work it, turn on the cause and effect mechanism that stops suffering and produces nirvana, awakening. In today, not tomorrow, not in heaven, not in now. So it's there. And it's available in this room right now. I don't know how you are all perceiving this reality. We're all perceiving this reality slightly different. If we are all perceiving reality slightly different, it is possible for people and beings to perceive reality completely different. That's what causes wars, right? So if reality can be perceived A or B or C, it can also be perceived as D or X or something completely magnificent. It's changing. And if it can change a little, it can change completely to the point where there's no death, there's no suffering. So it's completely changeable. But anyway, more to that later. In the West, we spend $10 billion building this thing called the Large Hadron Collider, which is our modern way of doing exactly the same search that happened 600 years before Christ. This is our modern way of finding out what is the code to the world. How does the universe work? The Large Hadron Collider promised scientists to find the ultimate answer to everything. If I can quote one of their scientists, he said, "We have the outrageous ambition to understand the world. If it's successful, the Large Hadron Collider could open the door to the complete understanding of the world around us and even help yield ultimate goal of physics, a theory for everything." So the human need for knowledge can look outside, can look inside. We have this search in us. We want to understand, how does this work? The Western or modern way of looking at the world is outside of us. If I can find this particle and this process and this theory and this turns to that and this turns to that, if I can find the edges of the universe or the smallest particle, then I've figured it out. And then the Buddha said, actually, you can keep doing that until the cows come home. I'm sure he didn't say that. Because cows are holy in India. They're always home. He said the search is inside us. Yeah. So the Buddhist analogy for looking outside, because whatever the finest particle is, you can divide it in two. So there'll be a left side and a right side, and whatever that half is, you can divide that in two, and there'll be a top side and a bottom side of the left side. And whatever that top left side of the left side is, the top left side is, you can divide that in two, and you get the top part of the left side, and the top left of the left side, and it's never ending. And the same for large objects. So we can get as large or as small as we want in the physical world. The answer is not there. So the metaphor, I guess, for that in Buddhist terms, I don't know if you've heard this, if you're walking a rugged earth, with sharp stones and things that cut your feet, you could look for enough leather to cover the entire surface of that rough world. And how much leather would it take to cover the mountains and the Himalayas and the sharp rocks? Or, that's looking outside. Or you could cover your own feet in leather, which would be equivalent to covering the entire world in leather. So you just cover your feet. And then you've covered the world. You've changed the world. It doesn't cut. So the metaphor is the same. We can spend $10 billion on the Large Hadron Collider, which looks like this. Yeah. I know, it's massive. That's just one of the gates in that big circle that I showed you before. So in one of those things, that's one of the gates. Yeah? And the idea is to propel the smallest particle and smash it with another particle with the hope that you would find this thing called a Hobbs.
Yes.
Boson. Thank you. Particle, which they found on July 4th this year. And then you can confirm that the reason why matter has mass, and then that has all these implications. So you could look at that, and what I found uncanny about this gate inside the Large Hadron Collider is that Buddha designed it this way, right? Which looks very similar to, anyway.
Go back, take it off again.
I know, right? So it's got a center and a second circle, and isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, it's got.
Did you do that?
Not. I mean, I did the slide. I didn't build a Large Hadron Collider, but like.
And with different dividers.
I know the dividers is perfect of the realms, right, and the circle inside the circle, and so he's guarding it constantly right now, right? And I think that's very interesting. Yeah. I can do that a lot.
Slow dissolve.
No, but seriously, it's the same search, just looking with different lens. One's with a telescope, and the other one's with a microscope. Yeah, but inward, and it's in us. We want to know these answers. We want to know why the world functions the way it's functioning. We want to know why. I mean, if you're old enough, you've hurt enough, you've had enough smashes in your face, enough face on the concrete, enough cuts in you to know that even when you get happinesses, they don't last. And I'm not saying that to be depressive. I wish they last. And it's not that they can't last, it's that there's something stopping us from making them continue. It's caused. We'll cover it. So we spent $10 billion as a group of nations building the Large Hadron Collider, and the answer has been there all along. Ta-da! So inside, so you can divide the Buddhist teachings in many, many ways, but essentially, the first thing he taught in the first turning of the wheel is the 4 Arial truths. I forgot. How many humans do we have in the room? Notice I said humans.
0.
How many angels? No. I'm sorry that I did not have enough.
17.
I think there's 3 pages. 4. Let's have a quick look. 1. This way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I printed enough of this booklet, but it looks very messed up. Can someone unmess it for me? I think there's only 8 or 10 in there. Feel free to share it. This gives you a map of the wheel of life. I'm going to ask you to fill out the map. This gives you a different map, a blank version of the wheel of life. So you can start writing on it. Can you pass them out? Do you see how it works?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to give you a printed sample?
Sure, if you have one.
Yeah, it doesn't have the front cover or the back 2 pages. Huh? That's fine. So locked inside the painting are the first turning of the wheel, the first teaching that the Buddha shared on the planet after he had this experience of ultimate reality. So he sat under the Bodhi tree, troubled about why is life suffering, how do we stop it, what can we do about it? Is there an answer to the way that the world is going? And after years of trying different methods, he got fed up and he said, I'm not moving from this tree until I figure it out. He entered a deep, deep state of meditation. He had what was called direct perception of dependent origination, which we'll talk here. And then he got to see the ultimate nature. And then he came out of that state and didn't talk for a little bit. He didn't want to share what he had seen. He thought it wouldn't be understood. And then he taught the first turning of the wheel. He taught the 4 Arial truths. And the first one is that life is dukkha. Life is suffering. And suffering is it's too simple a word to describe dukkha. Yeah, dukkha has all these other connotations in Sanskrit. So that life is suffering. Even when you get a pleasure, it will end. Any pleasure that you get that necessarily is completed by a suffering can't be called a pleasure. Because as soon as it gets taken away, it hurts. And even if you do get what you want and you habituate what you want, it becomes normal in this world that we live in, and we take it for granted. So the iPhone 1 looks retarded against the iPhone 5. We're dissatisfied with it. But by itself, it's an amazing thing. Why can't it continue to give us that happiness? You know? Everyone wants the iPhone 5 now. Why? It's not on the iPhone. It's us. You know? impact us. So we'll talk about this constant state of dissatisfaction that forces us to do things on this planet that are done in such a way that they produce more. Even want. When want gets satisfied, it fizzles so quickly. The satisfaction of the want, the taste of the ice cream, makes us want more ice cream. And then the taste goes. And you want more. So even the satisfaction of a want creates want. And then we are these treadmill things. And that's why we have a job to keep the house, to have the car, to have the microwave with the fridge and the iPhone and the iPad, yeah, and the vacation and the right clothes and the want feeds onto want. What if you could reset? What if you could reset your existence on this planet? Would you choose to create the society we've created? Would that be something you'd manufacture if it was up to you? Is this the kind of life you want to lead with this flesh and bone and mind that you have? You don't know how long you have it. The ultimate suffering is death, complete separation from all the stuff you've accumulated. House, boyfriend, girlfriend, how much paper do you have at home, pots, your favorite knick-knack, your iPhone 5. And ultimate suffering is that we're dead. And at that moment, and I don't want to prolong it because it can be dark. And I think in the West we misinterpret the teaching that observe reality. You will grow old. Whatever niceness you had about your face, your skin, your hair, your looks, it will go. Yeah, unless you're me, and then it gets better. And then, which is a joke. You will get sick. If you haven't gotten seriously sick yet, you will get sick. The first time I heard a good Buddhist teaching, how's that? Holy teacher said, there's two kinds of people in this room. Those that know what they're going to die from, that they've already been told, you have cancer. Yeah? And those that don't know what they're going to die from. And that hit me deeply. I'm like, that's so true. I'd never thought about it. I was 20-something and I'm like, let's get drunk. Yeah. But to think that everybody is marked with death, sickness, old age. It doesn't matter how many iPhones you get. Doesn't matter how many iPads we buy. Boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. They can give you a quick taste of ice cream, but the taste goes away, and then you need more ice cream. You need more ice cream. Can we get the AC on?
We can, and these they're printed upside down and backwards, so you each have one of the pages, but unless you're magical instantaneously,
if it doesn't
won't
fit,
go in order.
yeah, if it.
But you have them, and you can sort through them as you have the AV. You have what's available.
Apologies. I did the printing. I can do more. Huh? That's another. Yeah, printing is suffering. Sorting out printing is suffering. So it's not to get you depressed. It's to look at the facts. Because one of the premises here is that if you know what you're working with, if you're working with a truth, then you have a solid foundation to build a reality out of. If you're ignoring the truth, if you're pretending it doesn't exist, whatever you're building in your world is a house of cards. It has no foundation. So in the West, we're very good at hiding old age. We put old age in a did I nearly say? I was going to say a rest home, but at West home. In a nursing home. Seriously, we don't see people age. We ignore them. How many older people do you see in the advertisements on TV, the ones that sell you the iPhones?
Everybody get one of these?
Not everybody, whoever didn't get it.
Oh, she just came.
So, In the painting, you have suffering described as the big red monster, which is death. It's Yama. Yama is death. And inside the wheel, so death has his clutches on this entire wheel. And every being in existence, from our point of view, sits inside that wheel. And the Buddha taught that there are 5 realms or 6 realms, depending on how you divide it. I'll cover that when we go in detail, of which we can only see 2. The human realm and the animal realm. We'll cover the rest in a second. But what that means is that in this reality, on this planet, the way we experience this existence has 2 large divisions, at least for us, the 2 we can confirm. An animal can walk in here and have a completely different perception and experience of these words. They can't conceptualize what you're conceptualizing. It's impossible for them, from what we understand from them. They can't see the same things we see in the same way we see them. They see them as complete different objects, some threatening, some yummy, like your legs. If you've got a tiger in here, you wouldn't sit here and go, oh, this is good dharma. You know, it'd eat you up. You're food to them. You're not food to me. Did you get that subtle eye look?
Yes.
There are 2 realities occurring, at least 2 divisions of reality, the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. What that means is that the perception that we have about this experience is forced upon us differently. You can't pretend not to see the world the way you see it. The tiger can't pretend not to see the world the way they see it. We'll talk about that more. So the first Ariel truth, the first thing he taught is that life is suffering, and suffering is depicted by death, and then the 5 realms of existence in there. The next thing he taught was that those sufferings, the way those realities are experienced, are actually caused. And this is fairly scientific. It says that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, including perception. That was another aha when I first started studying these things. It's like in the West, we want to find through the Large Hadron Collider and other things that this atom is caused by these subparticles, and that making cake has these ingredients, and we figured out cause and effect. And we say that's true for making bricks, from cutting timber floors, from producing pens. We know cause and effect, and we think we can manipulate it fairly well. And that's true. That side of reality is fairly predictable. And something says that there are laws in this universe that make things predictable, cause and effect. But something in the West tells us that's true for everything, but not our consciousness. And that's a big shift of thinking for me. That was a big shift of thinking for me when I realized that you could apply the same causation laws if it's universal, if it's a universal truth, if it's an ultimate truth, the laws of cause and effect. Why not to human consciousness? Why not to all consciousness? And so to look at the way we experience and perceive this reality through the lens of cause and effect was a revelation for me when I first came to one of these classes. And so Buddha said in this painting that that suffering we just described, aging, getting sick and dying, which can describe that of an animal, of a human, or anything in this realm. That's a fairly generic thing. Has a cause. It didn't just happen. It's not uncaused. It's not random. It's not luck. It's not the wish of something external to you, because you are having the experience in a specific way. He says that cause is will cover it. The ring outside, the 12 links of dependent origination, and the center of the wheel, the hub of the wheel, is the 3 poisons. We'll cover them. He's saying that the way we experience reality with those sufferings we described, even the dissatisfaction of wants that we've had, was produced by something. And that he can tell you what that production is. It's got a hub, the 3 poisons, and it's got this repeatable thing called the 12 links of dependent origination, means things originate in dependence to other things. The amazing thing about that is that you could stop it. If you know the cause, if you know the real cause, if suffering is caused and produced, and if you know the real cause, if this is true, then you can stop the cause. If you keep thinking that it's some bearded dude in the sky, or if you keep thinking that it's luck, fortune, misfortune, if you think it's random, you're not even going to look to fix it. But if you think that it's caused, and you investigate enough to understand that it's caused, then that cause can stop. That can stop the production of suffering. It can stop the perception of samsara, which is the things locked inside that thing, the suffering realms, to produce a freedom from samsara. That's amazing. I say amazing differently. So you can stop suffering, is what they're saying, because you know what produced it. And I'll show you where in the link you can stop that. And then lastly, in this part of the painting, what I didn't cover is that the cessation of suffering is described beautifully in the paragraph or the instruction to this painting, which is not here. It's usually somewhere here or a bubble below the moon. The moon, the disk of the moon signifies nirvana, which, what's the definition of nirvana?
Permanent cessation of all mental afflictions.
The permanent cessation of all mental afflictions. So the stopping permanently of anything that disturbs the mind. Death disturbs the mind. Nirvana means no death. Getting old disturbs the mind in the way we perceive it. No getting old. Getting sick disturbs the mind. Nirvana means no getting sick like the way we get sick. You are free from all mental afflictions permanently. That's the instructions here, which we'll cover in the last class. Describe how you experience life as the moon, as nirvana. And then lastly, that there is a way to get there. There is a way to shift gears. We're cycling through this realm with these 12 links, life and death, and sick and after and death. And there are many cycles. And that there is a way to find the stopping of the cause. And that's the Eightfold Path, the entire teachings of the Buddha, from the high level 3 principal realm, the 3 principal paths, which I'll cover in a second. All the teachings point to some aspect of stopping samsara. And as you can see, both nirvana and the Buddha, which is the path to, what he taught is the path to nirvana, the path to stopping suffering completely, permanently. He's outside the wheel, he's outside the clutches of death. The moon is outside the clutches of death and all the suffering contained therein. They're freed from the cycle. So that code in the painting, that code in the painting is what King Udrayana saw. The Buddha knew that King Udrayana would have this experience upon seeing this code. King Udrayana being a regular being like you and me, skin and bone, children and realms to look after and typing emails and whatever. He saw this code, in his experience of meditating upon it, decoded, saw the ultimate nature of things, and became free from that suffering. He became an Arya. He began the Eightfold Path. He began the path that began the cessation of suffering. So then, next, I'm going to cover some of the details. I want you all to have a quick break. We'll see each other in about 10 minutes. Get that into your head, and now we're going to go in depth about each one of those parts. That's the rest of the course. But not just as an understanding, it's how do we use that information today in 2012, before we jump over to 2013, where the world's supposed to end just a few days before, right? How do we make that end of the world true for us? End of this world, end of the suffering world. How do we stop this wheel from turning, where suffering upon suffering awaits us, and shift that completely where we have freedom from that, really? Is that possible? If it is, what's the way to see it? This class would give you the tools to step into that possibility, really. I think that's bloody awesome. So let's have a break. I'll see you at 8:15. Thanks for coming. Any questions to the front? Merry Christmas.